This will be a little longer video than normal because it's 10 practice problems. You can fast forward if you know how to do them, or you can look at some of the answers or not get any help at all. That's entirely up to you. But this is just your basic ideas of absolute value equations. So I've already taught this in class. This is just practice. Well, we must get the function alone. The function being alone is the most important thing. If it's not alone, we can't reverse the function. And so right now, absolute value is sitting right here, but it has stuff hanging on the outside. It has a -5 hanging on the outside. So how do we get rid of the -5? How do we reverse the -5? Well, if it's multiplied by -5, which it is, see, there's no adding there, is there? There's only multiplying. The reverse of multiplying is division. So we are going to divide by -5. Now, what is -5 divided by -5? Well, that's 1. So this is a 1. And we don't need it. In multiplication, do you need to multiply by 1? No, you don't. So now we have absolute value of x equals, well, -20 to -5, that's +4. Now we learned today that absolute value can be either positive or negative on the inside, but it's always positive on the outside. So x can equal to 4, because that's what's on the inside. Or -x could also equal 4, because if you put -x inside the lines, it would turn to a positive, because absolute value is a distance, and a distance is always positive. Well, this one over here, we don't have to do anything. X equals 4. But this -x equals 4, we have to do something with. So that has to be divided by -1. Because we have to have a negative divided by negative is a positive x equals -4. And there are my two answers. All right, let's do it again. What has to be alone? The function has to be alone. Here's my function right here. Well, I've got a -7 hanging on to the outside of it. That's -7. What's the opposite of -7? +7. So we're going to scratch it over here, and we're going to move it over there. The inverse of -7 is +7. So we're going to put it over there. Now we have the absolute value of -4x is equal to 28. And we decided that you could be either positive or negative on the inside. So I have -4x equals 28. That's what I have. I'm looking at that, okay? And I also know that I can make the negative of that equals 28, because it can be the same and it can be the opposite. Again, it can be the same and it can be the opposite. Right? So -4x, what do I do? Divide by -4, divide by -4, x equals -7. There's my first answer. All right, what is -4x? Well, that's +4x. We're supposed to know that. So that's simplified there. And then I divide by 4, and I get x equals +7. Now, right here, you're going to think, oh, well, it's always going to be the positive and the negative. That is not true. You're going to see that soon. All right. 1 plus absolute value x plus 3 equals 7. All right. What do I have to do first? I have to get my function alone. I cannot inverse my function unless I get it alone. Well, there's this +1 thing hanging out there. And that is a +1, isn't it? It's adding 1. What's the opposite of adding 1? Subtracting 1. So now I have x plus 3 is equal to 6. Well, I know that x plus 3 equals 6. That's the easy one. What's the other possibility? Negative x plus 3 equals 6, because they can be a positive or a negative. And I can put these little parentheses right there if that'll help you think. But you have to understand that one of them was positive, and then I wrote the other one negative. Now what do I do here I have x plus 3 equals 6. Well, plus 3, that means minus 3. So x equals 3. How do I deal with this next one? Because I've got this negative and I've got these parentheses. And what do parentheses tell me to do? Oh yeah, parentheses tell me to distribute something. I need to distribute that negative. It's like negative 1, isn't it? That's like negative 1. So negative 1 times x, negative x. Negative 1 times 3, negative 3. Oh, well now I can finish, can't I? Well, what's a negative 3? What's a minus 3? Well, if it's a minus 3 right there, what is it over here? That's the inverse of it. The backwards, the opposite, the reverse of it. If I have a minus 3, I'm going to add 3. Now I have negative x equals 9, but I'm not allowed to have a negative x. What does negative x mean? Oh yeah, negative x means negative 1x. That's what that really is. I just don't see it. So to get rid of it, I have to divide by a negative 1. Do I get rid of it? Yeah, negative 1 over negative 1 is a factor of 1. X equals negative 9. How do we do on that one? All right. Well, let's try this one. Here's my function right here. So I've got this hanging on the outside of it. That's not multiplied by 5. That's subtracting 5. What's the reverse of subtracting 5? Adding 5. So I now have absolute value of 10x equals negative 70. Now right there, you need to stop. Why? Absolute value is a distance, and distance is always positive. Is there any way for the absolute value of anything to equal negative 70? No, it's not. And you're going to have to understand that. Now the answer will be written like this. This is a set of nothing. Not 0. It's a set of nothing. There's nothing there. That's called null or void. It's nothing there. There is no possible answer. And we're going to talk more about no possible answers soon. All right. I need the function to be alone. Well, there's my function. It's not alone. It has a negative 4. So I'm going to divide by negative 4. Now, for just a minute, did you think maybe we were going to do that null and void thing again? Because there was a negative 4 over there, wasn't there? But it's not null and void because we haven't finished getting it in the right order. Now that we have it in the right order, what's negative 4 divided by negative 4? That's a 1. Okay. When we get to this point, we see that now we're back to positive so that we don't have to worry about it anymore. All right. So we know that 2x equals 1. That's a possibility. But we also know that negative 2x can be 1, can't it? There's always the opposite. There's two possibilities. All right, so 2x equals 1. You divide by 2. X equals 1/2. What does this actually mean? This is like a negative 1, isn't it? What's negative 1 times 2x? That's negative 2x. All right. And then I divide by negative 2. And so x equals negative 1/2. Well, that was easy enough. Let's try another one. Here's my function. It's not alone. It's got a plus 8 hanging on the outside of it. That's adding 8. What's the reverse of adding 8? That's subtracting 8. So negative 5 plus x is equal to 3. 11 minus 8 is 3. Now I have to have two answers. I have to have two possibilities, don't I? Well, there's negative 5 plus x can be 3. And there's also this negative thing that can equal, that can equal 3. So I have two equations because there's two possibilities, because there's two directions. I can go in the negative direction or I can go in the positive direction. All right, so now I have two equations. Well, if I'm looking over here at this negative 5x plus that, what is this? This is negative 5. This is subtracting 5. If I'm subtracting 5 and I move it, I reverse it, that's positive 5. So now I have x equals 8. What do I do over here? Well, this is like a negative 1, isn't it? So I have to distribute it. So that's positive 5, negative 1x equals 3. All right, I have an add 5. That's not a minus 5. This is 5 minus x. So I have an add 5. And if I move it, it's a negative 5, isn't it? So now I have negative x is equal to negative 2. Can I leave it like that? No, I can't leave it like that, can I? Okay. So I divide by negative 1, because that's what that really is, negative 1. Negative 1 and x equals, what's a negative divided by a negative? That's a positive 2. How are we doing? All right, let's do some weirder ones. Okay, my absolute value is right here. So I have to get it alone. So I have to divide by 9. Now, that's not 9 plus anything, is it? Look right here. That is a multiplication problem. That is not 9 plus absolute value. That's 9 times. Remember, in algebra, when things are together, they are multiplied. So we're going to divide there. So that's 4 plus x equals 0 divided by 9 is still 0. So I've got two possibilities. 4 plus x equals 0, and negative 4 plus x equals 0. So I'm going to go over here first. If that's a positive 4, that's adding 4. 4 plus x, that's a minus 4. So x is equal to negative 4. Over here, I need to distribute, don't I? Negative times 4, negative 4, negative times x, negative x. All right, that's a negative 4, and when I move it, it's a positive 4, so that's negative x equals 4. I'm not allowed to leave it negative x because that's really negative 1x. So I'm going to divide by negative 1. And so x is going to equal to oh, look at that. They both equal negative 4. I wonder why that is. Let's think about that for just a minute. Each time we've done this, we've gone in two directions. We went negative and positive, negative and positive, negative and positive. But you know what? 0 doesn't have a negative or a positive. It's just 0. So there was only one distance to find, because you don't have a negative 0 and a positive 0. You just have a 0. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Okay. Got to keep on your toes. All right, here's my absolute value right here. I got a positive 6, so that makes it a negative 6 when I move it. So that's absolute x minus 2 equals 0. I wonder if I've got that thing that's going to happen again. Let's see. So if x minus 2 equals 0, and I have negative x minus 2 equals 0, well, over here, if I have a negative 2, I add 2, so x equals 2. And over here, I need to distribute my negative 1, don't I? So negative, negative x, negative times negative 2 is positive 2. All right? Okay, so I got a positive 2, and if I move it, that's a negative 2. So negative x equals negative 2. Oh, but I'm not allowed to leave that because that's really like a negative 1x, isn't it? So I'm going to divide by negative 1, and x equals, oh, look at that, negative, negative, positive. So I did that thing again with 0, didn't I? Okay. Last one. Let's do it. Let's finish up strong. Here is my absolute value. There's my function. It's got to be alone. Well, I got this plus 8. If I'm adding 8, what's the reverse of adding 8? That's minus 8. All right, so I have a 2, 3x, 11 minus 8 is 3. Okay. Now, I still don't have my function alone, I still got this 2 hanging out there. Is that 2 plus that? No. That's 2 times that, isn't it? That's 2 times that absolute value. And the reverse of multiplication is division. So now I have 3x is equal to 3 over 2, and I forgot my little lines. Don't forget your lines because they're really critical. Not until you write your 2 options. That's when your lines go away, is when you have 2 options. So let's write out our 2 options. We have 3x equals 3 over 2, and we have negative 3x equals 3 over 2, right? I hate fractions. If we hate fractions, the easiest way to get rid of them is to multiply by the part that we hate. Well, if you look at this first one right here, that 2 right there is the part we hate, because that's what makes it a fraction, isn't it? So what if we multiplied both sides by 2? What happens to these 2's right here? Isn't that like canceling? Isn't a 2 divided by 2, isn't that 1? And we don't need 1s, factors of 1. So we have 6x equals 3. Well, I need to divide by 6, don't I? All right. So I have x equals 3 over 6. And I think my middle school teacher told me I have to reduce that, so that equals 1 over 2. How'd I do? All right, so let's go back over here. We have negative 3x equals 3 over 2. I hate fractions. So since we hate fractions, we multiply by the part that we hate, right? And if we do that, it cancels. So this equals 3. And 2 times negative 3x is negative 6x. We're going to divide by negative 6. X equals negative 3 over 6, or negative 1 over 2. All right, now these are not the hard absolute values. We're going to get to the hard absolute values, but these are strictly the easy practice. Let me get this stuck in my head. Absolute value. So live long and prosper.